Hello, everyone, and good morning. Welcome to another press conference of the Honorable Prime Minister, Roosevelt Skerrit. We welcome all listeners and viewers tuned in via the various media. Let me acknowledge the Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit, Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Dominica, Honorable Roland Royer, the Minister for Agriculture, Fisheries, Blue and Green Economy, Honorable Julian Defoe, the Minister of State with specific responsibility for fisheries and blue economy, Honorable Lakia Joseph, the Parliamentary Secretary with specific responsibility for development of community agro-enterprises, other government ministers, Ms. Karen Prevost, Secretary to the Cabinet, Mr. Reginald Severin, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture, other permanent secretaries. Good morning, all. This morning, we will hear briefly from the Honorable Prime Minister and then from the Honorable Roland Royer. But the focus of this conference is really to take questions from the members of the media who are gathered here this morning on the issues they may deem most pressing within an hour's space. At this point, please welcome the Honorable Prime Minister.
Morning. This is in keeping with our commitment to have a press conference every 2 weeks. And the intention there is to, in addition to myself, to have a minister to speak on one or two aspects of his or her portfolio. Last week we had the Minister for National Security. Today we have the Minister for Agriculture. And of course, in the next 2 weeks, we'll have another minister who will highlight not everything in the ministry, just a snippet of things happening in the ministry there. And in my case, I will touch on about 3 matters, and because the intention here is to give the press more time to ask questions, and this is really the intention. I just want to share with you on the CBI, a question that was asked of me 2 weeks ago with regards to the revenues that were generated in the last financial year. We had estimated, as you know, we do present to the Parliament in the estimates projected revenue, and then we report to the Parliament on actual revenue from every non-tax revenue source and also from a tax revenue source. In respect to the CBI, we estimated in 2021-2022 budget to raise $463,354,284. So that was projected. And the actual revenue we generated from the CBI in the financial year 2021-2022 was $458,646,969. So this is the actual amount, and of course, these numbers will be reflected in the approved budget estimates, which will be published shortly. I also want to draw to the country's attention that the prime ministers of the countries which operate citizenship and investment programs, we have taken a decision to convene a meeting. Meeting will be convened tomorrow via Zoom. So that is Dominica, Antigua, Grenada, St. Kitts, St. Lucia. All the prime ministers will meet to discuss the CBI programs, the opportunities, the challenges, and of course the global environment within which our CBI programs are operating, all of us recognizing how important a non-tax revenue measure this program is for us. And so we'll be meeting to consolidate and our efforts and to see some of the things that we can do collectively to place our programs in a much more stronger position it currently is in. And there are some ideas which I'm not in liberty to share with you now, but certainly post the meeting tomorrow, we will be in a position to share some of the actions that we intend to take. We will also have a meeting with the U.S. Treasury Department. And I must say publicly that the United States government has been very helpful with helping us in in strengthening our CBI programs. And late last year, a team from the Treasury Department visited Dominica on our invitation to examine our CBI programs in an objective manner and to see where the strengths are, where the weaknesses are, and what are the recommendations they have that they could suggest to us. And one of the things I suggested to them, and they've accepted, is for there to be a collective meeting of all of the countries, so not just a bilateral meetings with each of us, but having a collective meeting. And they've indicated to us and waiting on a date from us as to when to convene that meeting. So we look at the CBI and to see how we can better position the CBI to stand the test of any scrutiny from anybody. And we're also getting that same kind of support from the UK government, and also the European Union countries are also, we'll hopefully later this, very soon we'll have some discussions with the European Union to examine in an objective, dispassionate manner where we are. So we're very grateful to the United States. Clearly there's a very helpful, and we look forward to their input to us and how we get it. So it's not a situation where they come and say, well, you must do A, B, C, D, F. It's about collectively examining stuff and see what actions we need to take to strengthen our CBI program. So we're very grateful for this, and I'm hoping that very early in February, that meeting with the countries and the U.S. Treasury can be hosted at the earliest opportunity following our meeting tomorrow afternoon. I think the meeting tomorrow afternoon is a very, by Zoom, it's a very welcome one, and we're all very eager to discuss and to meet. We do discuss informally from time to time, but to consolidate ourselves and to have some actions that we can certainly take together to enhance our programs. In respect to Mr. Irvin Shillingford, who passed away, as you know, he passed away on January 26, 2023, our Dominican cricketing hero. And I take this opportunity to express on behalf of the government and people of Dominica deepest condolences to his family, loved ones, and others around Dominica and the region who mourn his passing. Irvin Shillingford was a Dominican hero, a pioneer who excelled in the sport of cricket and represented the aspirations of many Dominican cricketers who hoped to make the West Indies cricket team. Shillingford made his Test debut at age 32 against Pakistan in March 1977, scoring 120 in his second match in Border in Guyana. He played 4 Tests and 2 ODIs for the West Indies and scored 5,449 runs in 92 first-class matches. He holds the distinction as the only Dominican cricketer to have scored a Test century. Many of us still remember the joy he brought to the Dominican people through his accomplishments in the sport and his prowess on the field. This morning, I spoke with his widow, Mrs. Elizabeth Shillingford, and I informed her of a decision by the government to accord the late Irvin Shillingford an official funeral. The government and people of Dominica recognize his exceptional contribution to developing cricket in Dominica, his many years spent promoting the sport through his involvement in and leadership of the Cavaliers Cricket Club, and his years of service as a national selector. The official funeral is an expression of the high honor and esteem in which the late Irvin Shillingford is held by the government and people of Dominica. The details of the official funeral will be made known to the public at a later date. And just to let the public know how this decision by the government is special, there's an existing policy which only accords official funeral to former members of parliament. And so the government is making a derogation in respect to Irvin Shillingford. And my final point, because I know the press may have, and I see Carla is here now, so, Carla being present, you must have lots of questions. The government of Dominica will soon enter into a formal agreement for the development, the construction of a synthetic athletic track in the Point Trong area, that's in Portsmouth. We had previously informed the public that exploration of that site was underway for the development of this facility for the advancement of track and field in Dominica. The government of Dominica has now taken a firm decision on this and is moving ahead with plans for construction. Already, clearing of the land is underway, and in the coming days and weeks, more information will be shared with the public. It is our intention also to share the plans with the public so everyone is aware of what the facility will look like and what it will entail. But certainly this is a positive step forward in sports development in Dominica. It is a long-awaited project, and I'm sure everyone will be pleased with that announcement. And of course, in the next 2 weeks, we will inform the country of some additional projects which the government will embark upon. Clearly, we have to build and create more opportunities for recreation and entertainment in Dominica, especially at night. We have lots to offer during the day for natural beauty, but there are some additional attractions which we will speak about. I don't want to overwhelm you today with too many announcements, but certainly in the next 2 weeks we'll also share with you some additional interventions that we're making to enhance our tourism offering, to allow more families to be able to get out of their homes and away from the gadgets and enjoy what other attractions have to offer. So we'll be sharing those with you in the next 2 weeks. I would like now to call on Honorable Roland Roye, Minister of Agriculture, who has really hit the road running where agriculture is concerned, and I have every confidence in his abilities and advancing agriculture to the even higher levels than where it is now. So I invite Honorable Roye, please.
Thank you, PM, for your kind words. Honorable Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit, my cabinet colleagues, CAPSEC, Karen Prevost, permanent secretaries, staff of the Ministry of Agriculture, media, and of course, morning to the hardworking farmers. PM, thank you for the opportunity to share with you some of the plans and programs of the ministry. In this reset, our plans and programs are designed to meet the target set for the sector. This is for agriculture to contribute $700 million to Dominica's GDP by 2030. We must set a strong foundation to achieve these goals. Therefore, over the coming months, emphasis will be placed on the following key areas: enhancing the delivery of extension services by building capacity and equipping officers with the necessary tools, promoting research and development by aggressively engaging CARDI and other organizations to enhance productivity in the sector, data collection and analysis to include conducting an agricultural census. I must mention the last census was done in 1995. Greater collaboration between the Ministry of Trade and Agriculture to build stronger linkages for marketing of our agri products, improvement to farm access roads, modernization of agriculture through investments in hydroponics and smart greenhouses, develop and implement a national strategy to address the issues of farm labor, expansion of crop production using a market-led approach, expansion of the livestock and fisheries subsector geared at reducing importation of meat and fish products, greater emphasis on agro-processing by adding value to key high-value commodities, designing special programs targeting young farmers and entrepreneurs to encourage their participation in agriculture. Government's plans for the development of agri-sector is broad. However, today we'll provide updates on 3 major initiatives, namely the White Potato Program, Feeder Road Rehabilitation, and the Emergency Livelihoods and Climate Resilience Project. The white potato program is aimed at reducing the importation of white potatoes into Dominica. The program is currently being implemented through the Division of Agriculture and Dexia, and today we can report that 2,300 bags of seeds were imported in November 2022, and to date, 1,400 bags were sold, of which 1,100 has been so far distributed to 115 farmers. Approximately 35 acres have been established thus far. We can also safely report that we have surpassed last year's establishment, which was 32 acres. However, our targeted acreage to establish the season is 70 acres, and we intend to have this revised next season based on crop performance. In providing support to the program, the Ministry of Trade has organized a credit support facility provided by Dexia with package containing seeds, fertilizer, and agrochemicals, which is distributed to farmers who are taking part in the program. The facility provides for farmers who are buying seeds of more than 5 bags. So they will receive the seeds, agrochemicals, fertilizers, and upon selling to Dexia, the cost of the material which was advanced will be deducted. Farmers are also allowed to pay 50% of the cost of the material upfront if they so desire. In providing further support to this program, the cost of fertilizer was reduced from $112 per bag to $50 per bag, and the purchase price per pound was also increased from $1.35 per pound to $1.50 per pound. So we continue to encourage farmers to participate in the program as plans are afoot to develop a white potato farmers cooperative society to coordinate the expansion of the subsector. As it relates to farm access roads, the government has over the past 2 years invested $20 million under the European Development Fund for the improvement of 8 major farm access roads, namely the Mobile MacArthur Feeder Road in Granby, Middle Ridge in Calibishi, Formy Road in Cassibruce, Bupla Feeder Road in Paybush, the road leading to the Agri Center in La Plaine, the Cuba Petit Makushi Feeder Road, Mangogota Road in Woodfordale, and Grand Riviere Feeder Road in La Plaine. The Bellevue Chope Pichle Farmer Road, which also serves as a bypass, will be tendered in the upcoming weeks. This project will also facilitate the implementation of the Lubia to Bacatel Road and serve the farmers of Bellevue and Pichle. In addition to that, the ministry will undertake a condition assessment of 28 additional feeder roads across the island, and this will inform the development of a comprehensive farm access road improvement program. Based on our assessment of the production capacity in these areas, the ministry anticipates that over 2,000 acres of prime agricultural lands will become available for the expansion of production in a range of agricultural communities, targeting over 1,500 farmers over the next 3 years. Providing better access to farms remains top priority to the government. I was recently advised by the Prime Minister that $5 million under the European Development Fund is available to continue feeder road rehabilitation program. And in addition, the Ministry of Finance is in the process of securing $5 million from the Caribbean Development Fund, which will be put towards feeder road development. As it relates to the Emergency Livelihood and Climate Resilience Project, so far under this project, we have spent $38.7 million for the past 2 years. 3,311 crop farmers, 30 livestock farmers, 163 fishers, 3 boat builders have received direct support for the restoration of their operations. Additionally, throughout the pandemic, 700 backyard farmers, along with 45 poultry producers and 40 pork farmers, have received emergency support under the project. The project also features the Productive Alliance, which is an agribusiness operating model that will link primary producers to markets through the consolidation of producers into groups or cooperatives. The project will provide financial support and an initial 5 producer organizations that is currently established and operating within the agricultural sector. The Productive Alliance will ensure that identified groups are producing a key commodity in Dominica and can enter into marketing contracts for sale of the agricultural products while they coordinate the procurement of inputs, services, and financing of the individual operation as a group. This will greatly enhance the market competitiveness of Dominica's products as issues of standards and quality and consistency of supply will be addressed. In late 2022, the Honorable Prime Minister has negotiated another package of financing valued $21 million for the agricultural sector from the World Bank under the crisis response window, related to the rising prices of inputs and shipping that threatens our food security. Under this window, a contingency emergency response component has been triggered under the project, allowing us to provide support over the next 24 months in the following areas. Livestock Enhancement Program, which will include subsidization of animal feed, strengthening broiler and egg production, rehabilitation of the National Abattoir, and strengthening hatchery operations. It will also cater for the modernization of cropping systems, which includes investing in open field irrigation, enhancement of banana production systems, strengthening greenhouse production to include capacity building of vegetable farmers across the island. It also includes restoration and development of 7 fishing landing sites in Sufuye, Scotshead, Newton, Fokole, Mahu, Bioche, and Sansouver. It caters for institutional strengthening, where support will be provided to Dexia to enhance food procurement and distribution systems. Also provide for support to regional markets through the purchasing of refrigerated containers, and importantly, the establishment of Buy Dominica depots in strategic Caribbean markets. And lastly, it caters for agro-processing development, where support will be provided to traditional and non-traditional agro-processors and essential oils. In closing, please permit me to thank Honorable Defoe, Honorable Joseph, and the entire staff of the ministry, and our partners, ICA, CADI, WOS Caribbean Dominica, for the commitment towards the development of the agri and fishery sector in Dominica. Thank you very much.
Thanks to Honorable Royer, the Minister for Agriculture, for his updates. And before him, we heard from the Honorable Prime Minister. We thank them both. At this point, we invite you, the members of the media who are here, to pose your questions. I see Mr. Kalai John Baptist wants to go first. So, Kalai, we welcome you. Please state your names and the media house that you represent.
Baptist Nature Iron News. The first question is for the Minister of Agriculture. We have been having some issues in Dominica as it relates to cocoa farmers, and I know we were bringing in cocoa from Grenada, from Dexia. There has been a shortage for a long time. Can you attempt to give us an update as it relates to the cocoa industry and cocoa farmers in Dominica, please? Okay, and then I have one for the Honorable Prime Minister. Mr. Prime Minister, you spoke just a little bit as it relates to the entertainment industry in Dominica. We know a lot is being said. People come to Dominica, there's no nightlife, and they're struggling. We have hotels opening, etc. What is your government's policy, if any, as it relates to nightlife and gaming in Dominica, sir? Yes, sir.
Nathaniel Duran, Kyrie, Radio News. Mr. Prime Minister, you spoke about a collaborative approach sorry, you spoke about a collaborative approach towards the CBI program and how it works in the different islands. But bearing in mind that all these different islands, they have different approaches to, because they too have these programs ongoing. What is Dominica's position as you approach this as in your meetings with the US and you mentioned Europe as well? So if you can give us some further light on that, sir. Thank you.
Leila Langford, DBS Radio. Good morning. A replacement for Ross University has been on the cards for some time now. Can you tell us whether there are plans for a university to be established at the former site of Ross University? My other question, you indicated that discussions would be held with Sir Dennis Byron on electoral reform. Can you reveal whether you were able to hold these discussions with him, and if so, what was the nature of the discussion? And my last question, there have been several calls for the names of certain streets to be changed and for some public buildings to be named after prominent Dominicans. Is that something government will pursue this year?
Okay, so as it relates to the question on cocoa, just a bit of background. The ministry has a cocoa program where we have a coordinator by the name of Mr. Franklin Joseph. Yeah, the program is ongoing. It's an expansion program. We've also invested in facilities for the processing of cocoa. But to answer your direct question, with the inputting of cocoa, Dex had paid for a container, and it is expected to arrive sometime in February. I think it cost about $160,000. But we usually purchase from Trinidad, so that should be on its way, and cocoa will be made available to the market soon. But the intention of the ministry is to ensure that we are self-sustainable in cocoa, and hence the reason why we have a program that is ongoing and we have our target set for expansion.
With respect to the question on the gaming industry in Dominica, I sincerely believe that is a conversation which the country should have. The problem we have in Dominica is that we all want Dominica to be in a particular position in time, but that we don't want to take the decisions to get Dominica to the position in time. So we go to other islands and we say, boy, this place is so exciting, the nightlife and so many things to do. But if we're to seek to introduce some of the very same things that we see overseas and we get excited about, then we have an issue with it. And so I believe that the issue of gaming is an international phenomenon, and I think it's a matter that we should have a mature discussion on. I know with respect to gaming, there will be people who will have issues about the exposure of nationals in many legislation. I know, for example, in St. Kitts and Nevis, in their legislation, there is a protection for citizens and residents in that legislation. So it is not something that the government, that the cabinet has discussed. So I want to underscore this. But I believe that it is something that we need to put on the agenda of the nation, and to see what are the things that we need to put in place. So there are a number of things that we're discussing, but certainly this is something that will require much more public consultation and discussion, and to have the varied views contend, and that we arrive at a consensus going forward and so forth. So, but it's something that we'll have to have a discussion in the public on. With regards to the CBI, well, let me make it very clear. I am very satisfied that every country within the Caribbean which has a CBI program, that our due diligence processes and the security measures are robust. And I can say so in an emphatic manner. I believe that there are some things that we can do more closely together. I think that we can have, for example, uniform legislation to deliver with programs. So we all have, we all have the same legislation dealing with it. I think that we need to also look at the application forms so that it can be uniform application forms across the board. I believe that there can be more of sharing of information among us in real time, and we'll have some proposals for that. And the fact is, all of us follow the same due diligence processes, in our respective countries. But this is a dynamic world we live in. Everything you do has to be reviewed from time to time. It is not a perfect system like every other system. It's not perfect, and therefore, collective approach will bring to bear greater capacities, and more resources at our disposal to address issues, and even our engagement with external entities and countries and organizations, that we can engage in a collective approach to this. Because the reality is every one of these entities, whether it's the European Union, whether it's the United States or the United Kingdom, they all understand the importance of these programs to our respective economies. I mean, our region is a region that is most affected by natural disasters. We have to build resilience. We have to build adaptation in our respective countries insofar as the infrastructure is concerned, insofar as our economy is concerned. Development assistance is not what it was many years ago. The amounts are dwindling. And even in some of our countries, because of their economic classification, they are unable to attract development assistance, overseas development assistance, and concessionary financing. So these countries have to go out to the commercial markets to borrow. And we all know the commercial markets can be expensive, And so every country in the world, from the most advanced economy or the first economy in the United States to the least advanced economy in the world, look at non-tax revenue to raise development assistance, to build infrastructure, to create sustainable jobs. Because the reality is, as time goes by, people end up having less disposable income. And therefore, there's a limit to which a government can tax people, either through direct taxation, that is income tax, or for consumption taxes, value-added tax. Can we increase in any one of our countries the rate of value-added tax on our citizens? The answer is no. Can we increase the rates of income tax on our citizens in Dominica? The answer is no. Left to me, I would remove the income tax completely. But once you make a concession, then you lose revenue there, and therefore you have to find another source of revenue to build infrastructure. I mean, when you look at our housing stock, for example, we were impacted by Hurricane Maria with over $900 million worth of damage to the housing stock. And one can do the mental maths to appreciate how much money we have spent in the last 5 years in housing alone. Building new homes, fixing homes, et cetera, et cetera. And all of this has been underwritten outside of the loan that we contracted from the World Bank, and some funds we've gotten from the European Union to build some homes in the Carnegie territory have been underwritten by the Citizens by Investment Program. Every month we spend about $4.5 million on the National Employment Program. And the amount has just increased because we've increased the work week for those engaged in the beautification program. And so the cost of that has increased. That's coming from the Citizens by Investment Program every single month. So there are a number of things that we're doing these funds across the countries which have the CBI programs. But there'll always be countries which will have concerns about the program insofar as the security is concerned. Some of them are well placed, some of them might be misplaced based on perceptions. And I think it is a matter of us engaging those stakeholders, those partners, and sharing with them information and to allay whatever concerns which they may have going forward. So I'm very excited about the meeting. What is good for us is that every one of us within those countries with the CBI program in the Caribbean, we have a pretty good relationship on a both formal and very informal level. And so I expect a lot of things to happen, because more happen when you have an informal relationship with people than you have all kind of protocols and you call everybody honorable and His Excellency and so we go by first names basis, and in a very informal way. So I'm sure a lot will happen positively for this. The replacement of Ross, as you know, we've signed an agreement with a company, of a group. We have also handed over since last year October, correct? To that group, they've taken over the campus. They have staff on island, and the numbers are increasing to start the preparatory work for the commencement of classes. We, based on the agreement, we expect classes to commence in September. They have been contracting accommodation for their staff. They have also been in very intense discussions and negotiations with accommodation for the students. And so they are well on their way to preparing for the commencement of classes in September 2023. And based on what has been happening, we're very confident that realization will come to a positive pass. And I think it will be a major step for us to have the school back and functioning there, and we appreciate the positive impact it has, especially on property owners, those who own apartments in Picard area and Portsmouth, and the impact it has had on their lives. And so we look forward to the commencement of classes in September. So insofar as our commitments in the agreement, we have fulfilled those commitments, and the other party are also fulfilling their commitments in a very diligent manner. And they've been engaging local suppliers of services and contracting them. And as you know, we also have invested in the refurbishment of some buildings in Portsmouth to provide office accommodation for Clare Harbour. And that in itself has had a very positive impact on Picard and Portsmouth in particular, where we have over 300 people employed directly, and one can also appreciate the indirect employment. And what is interesting is that we have people from all over Dominica working at Picard Portsmouth, young people, many of whom have rented accommodation in Picard Portsmouth area, and so when you drive by an afternoon when there's a change of shift, you can see the number of people who are leaving the building, going home, and so a lot of these things are in very positive impacts there, and so if we can get the university back and running, it certainly will add tremendous value and benefits to the people in enough, and of course the entire economy, and so on. But the people are very diligent. It's a group that we had engagement with during COVID period, and they were very helpful. They were very generous to us. They sent in doctors and lab technicians to assist us during COVID time. They may have invested in us, I believe, over $500,000 of equipment and supplies as a grant, as a gesture to us during the COVID time, and they provided us with a freezer, cold freezer they call it, to store the vaccines, and we know the cost of that. There's a huge cost to that, but they were very helpful, and I pray that spirit of engagement which we had during the COVID is what we will have when they establish the university, and if we do, I think the country will have a good partner to play. So sometimes things happen and people spend a lot of time on the negatives. We look to solutions, and we're optimistic people, and we also place our faith in God, and better things will come, and we're confident that better things will come with these partners. I did have a discussion with Mr. Dennis Byron on the 23rd, as I indicated to you at the last press conference. It was a very constructive engagement, where we looked at some of his recommendations. The recommendations really have no difficulties with them. I have expressed to him, reminded him of the urgency of getting this thing out of the way. Ideally, the government would like to go to Parliament before the next session of Parliament, that is to say before June 30th. 30th is in June, right? Yeah, such an important month, June, so especially June 8th, Um, so we've indicated to him, and he understands that too. He indicated to me that all things considered, he believes that we can go to Parliament in April of this year to pass the necessary legislation. So we look forward to that report. And our hope and prayer for myself personally is that all those who have been saying that they want electoral reform, that there can be no chatter. And let's move ahead and sign off on the recommendations and go to Parliament. And so there will be consultation, obviously, on the report. But I'm hoping that the consultations can be truncated because everybody has pontificated on this for so long that it's a matter of sending the matter to the jury. Case closed, and send it to the jury, send it to the Parliament to have the legislation enacted and give the Electoral Commission the authority to go ahead and do what they have to do insofar as implementing the legislation and the policy direction. But we're very committed to this, and we look forward to the report coming from Sir Dennis Byron. So it's a very constructive meeting that was held between myself and Sir Dennis Byron. And of course, I want to thank him for his service publicly, as I've done on many occasions. The issue of streets the names to be changed. This is a discussion we've had some years back. It has not, people have spoken about this, and we were hoping that if you're talking about roads, for example, in particular, we're hoping that with the roads enhancement project that as we enhance it, because you're not going to rename Great George Street if the sidewalks are in terrible conditions, especially towards the bus stop area, the old Roosevelt Health Center. So the idea is to have this done, and as we go along, solicit recommendations from the public on this. With regards to the hospital is basically completed. There are some, whenever you do a project, there'll be remedial works that have to be done, especially as the hospital has been in use over a number of years before its full completion. So there's some remedial works. Obviously, there'll be some names that we'll provide for a number of the various departments. We have many theaters there, for example. We have many wards that will be named after prominent citizens. So while the hospital, the Dominica China Freedom Hospital, but there are many areas that will be named after people. The Margaret Hospital, I had made a recommendation to have it renamed, and I did in fact consult with that person, but that person turned it down, which is rather unfortunate. I don't want to name the person so that there's any embarrassment on the person's side. But as you've seen, we've named most of the new health centers that we have built, and there'll be some others that we will provide names. I believe in Soufriere, in Collio, Ansdeme, and there are some names on the table, so I'm hoping that the Ministry of Health will follow up on these and name them. Schools, we've, of course, once the Granby Primary School is completed to the satisfaction of the students there and teachers there, we'll have a formal ceremony on the with regards to Edward Regis. But the public is free to make recommendations. We still have one of the most wonderful bridges in the OECS, the West Bridge to be renamed. A bridge that withstood the ravages of Maria. Nothing happened to it, not even the paint was washed away, so it will be a wonderful edifice to name after someone. We have many people out there. We have Phyllis Shan Olfrey, we have Patrick John, and we have others who have made their contributions there, who we can put out there. We have Charles Savre, who's our current president, who's made his contribution. And many people among us, who have made their contributions that we can look at facilities that we can make suggestions on. I think I have captured the the, the questions. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
And good morning, all. I've John Baptist Luge,
I have
DBS.
other ministers here. I have Vince here. I have
Well, yes,
Dr. Mark
obviously.
here, I have Dennis here. So.
But the Honorable Roye made a very interesting remark when he spoke, and he was looking at probably not in all those words, but I sense that you spoke about food security. It is obvious that food insecurity continues to rise in the region. And even amidst that major challenge, we have high food prices, which continues to affect people's ability to purchase nutritious food. I wanted to find out if there's a plan in place to tackle, especially the latter. Of course, you spoke about food security and all of that, but the high food prices and people are complaining. Is there a plan in place? And the question number 2 from me, Prime Minister, Parliament will meet next week. I wanted to find out what is the major highlights at this session.
Good morning, all. Steve Vidal, Kyrie FM. Mr. Minister of Agriculture, there are still some concerns regarding the high level of fertilizer being used, in Dominica. Any plans of maybe addressing that concern?
Also, as it relates to agriculture, there were farmers who were affected by the tropical storm on 6 November 2022. I think some payment was promised to them. Can you give us an update as to where you are as it relates to that? Mr. Prime Minister, there's lots of talk. We spoke about police stations and bringing down costs. I know in Dominica, a number of police stations are being housed in dwelling houses, and the government has a land. I know, for example, in Point Michel, there's land in Point Michel for government to build a police station and other areas. What plans does government have to actually start to build police stations in the various areas also?
Good morning. Let me just ask a question to the Minister of Agriculture first. What's the plan for the cocoa or the coffee factory down in Portsmouth? I haven't heard about that in a little while. And Prime Minister, can you speak to the issue of our passports and why they rush? Is there something going on that we don't know about? E-passport, the e-passport. Huh? Yeah, no, they're rushing the deadline. Is there a rush? Oh. Go ahead.
The Minister of Agriculture will respond to the questions on agriculture. But I wanted to say that in Dominica, as a conversation I was having yesterday with some guys, that we have to encourage people to grow a lot more things. We have to go back to the days when, we had a few fowls laying under the house. We had a small cage. We could kill a rooster for Sunday lunch. We have a goat, we have a sheep, we have some rabbits. We have an avocado tree. If things get difficult and we have avocado and we have a piece of bread, you cut the bread and you put it in the avocado. Nobody knows that you didn't. You look like you had a big breakfast of imported things. A cherry tree to make juice. A banana plant in the corner of our property. There's no way we can survive in this Caribbean if every one of us have to be pulling a trolley of expensive things imported from overseas and unhealthy things with high sugar content, artificial flavored, when we can have our own cherry juice, our own pumpsitter juice, or golden apple, our own sour sub juice. When last anybody in this country drank a sour sub juice, and we're seeing the proliferation of it by local agro-processors. We're using our fruits and turning them into delicious juices. We have to support those local persons. I'm happy that the capsicum has taken on board in the cabinet. We only have local juices that we buy from local suppliers. Move away from the Vitamalts and the other things that used to occupy the cabinet fridge. and we insist that those who provide us with lunch, that we have local chicken, we have fish from the farmers, we have to. There's no way a family with 5 children, by the time you go and buy a box of juice for $15, once you open that box of juice, you have to fully cover, because it's gonna finish in one serving, But you can have a handful of cherries, and it can make you 2 gallons of juice. And you don't even have to add sugar to this, because adding sugar to this thing is a dangerous thing. We don't have to add sugar to any of these things. Sour up, So we have to, people have to be more conscious about these things, and to grow what we eat and so forth. In my case, as I said, I have fruits every morning, and all of the fruits come from my farm. I had fruits this morning, orange, and pink orange. I did some agriculture folks. Pink grapefruit, golden apple, what you call pomsite, custard apple, whatever it is. We have to look at this thing. I will chastise the Ministry of Agriculture in that we have to bring in more planting material for crops, long-term crops. This thing of plant quarantine and all these things, and there's a science to get over it. But for us to revolutionize the planting of avocados and citrus and so on, we have to bring in, the material from out, and to, in a dramatic way, propel the tree cropping program in the country and so on. Regards to police stations, here's an opportunity, Carla, for investments by local Dominicans. A Dominican can go ahead to the bank and take the money that they have in the bank, or borrow the money, build a police station, and the government rent to own it from you, say at a 5 or 6% interest rate. This is happening in other countries. In Antigua, most of the government offices were privately built, and the government renting it to own it. Eventually, I'm not sure they rent to own, but they're renting from these people. So it's an opportunity for Dominicans to get into these kinds of investments in Dominica. But we have a comprehensive plan to address the accommodation of police officers across Dominica. Rosa has been the main area, St. Joseph, Portsmouth is on the cards as well, Castle Bruce, I know, St. Joseph, because we have to demolish what's there and build all of this from scratch. So one of the things we're going to be doing, the government has land across the street from the police station, so we'll be building accommodation for the police there, modern accommodation, and then to build a new police headquarters there, and so the number of police stations, because really we have to modernize this thing. In Vegas, for example, where this police station was built maybe in the 50s or so, I mean, that's not adequate for guys to sleep in. This is back in the days of barracks type sleeping. And Monbruce, where the SSU is based, people need the privacy. A man needs the privacy. Even a guy has to call his girlfriend, he call his wife. You have a post office, next to him is dropping what he's saying and so forth. I mean, I deal with things in a practical way. I don't read textbooks and talk about things. I talk about things as we know it. So we really have to have the people there who have to work from home. Not many people work from home, away from home. Sorry, the police officers work away from home, and therefore, whenever they're working away from home, we have to ensure in this modern day and age that the quality of the accommodation is as close to their home as possible. And so we've been having discussions. I know the minister has a discussion with the Truro Police and the Police Welfare Association, and there are actually some draft designs that have been developed, and the Ministry of National Security have those, and I'm sure they'll be discussing with the administration and the police to arrive at a consensus on whether they accept this or not, and so that we can move to the next stage of proceeding with the construction of those facilities. But we're very mindful of this, and the intention is to really modernize the accommodation and the office space, but especially accommodation for the officers who have to be out, and provide more privacy and comfort to them. So when a guy is at the police station in Vegas, he doesn't want to leave, he doesn't go home because he's so comfortable there. But now, I mean, it's difficult for guys to so even me as power rep, I'm looking at still how I can advance even the construction of a new police station in Vegas. In Vegas. No, I'm not saying as a power rep, so, but we have a number of areas where we are renting, And it was highlighting some of the more critical and urgent areas where police officers have very terrible conditions and so forth. Even not there in headquarters, you go there and I mean, 2-3 guys in the room. That's for back in the days. That was fine, but not in the modern day Dominica. Certainly, it's not correct at all. The issue of the e-passport and the urgency. I don't think there's any urgency. We all know of our articulated position on moving towards the e-passport. As a matter of fact, this is an international requirement. Countries like Europe and countries like the United States, European countries and the United States, they have delayed the mandating of citizens coming to their countries only with e-passports because they recognize some of the challenges which countries are having in transitioning from what they currently have, the machine-readable passports, to e-passports. And we invested in the e-passports, and we had the system in place more than a year. But the uptick was slow because people could still use their machine-readable passport to travel, so people didn't feel the need to have it replaced. And so that was setting us behind in terms of our timetable to get it going. And therefore, we felt as a government that we needed to bring the guillotine down and to say to people, from that day you will not have it. Obviously, we recognize that the 6 months was too short because there was a flooding of this, and we had to run a 24-hour shift system to get the backlog going. And we've tried to make the application process accessible. So we went to some countries, St. Thomas and St. Croix, etc., to get this going. And we went to different villages in Dominica to allow people to apply rather than come to town to get it going. And then we extended by another 6 months. And we felt that, look, if you keep extending this, then people will not move to get it going. And so we had to say, well, look, as of this date, you can maybe come into Dominica as a citizen with your machine-readable passport, but for you to leave, you need to get your e-passport and so forth. It is not as a result of, as people are saying in some talk shows and some Facebook posts, about we've been threatened by anybody or any fraudulent activities. No, when you have a document like a passport, you have to ensure that as far as possible it has as many security features as possible. So there is a dramatic increase in the security features from the machine-readable passport to the e-passports, and to make it to have it fraudulently manipulated is very difficult. I'm not saying it is absolutely impossible, but if you do it, then when you get to the border, to the immigration departments in some of the countries, they'll pick it up. You know what I'm saying? They'll pick it up because what we have done and what we continue to do is to provide all of the major countries, major ports, with samples of our passports. So they have samples of our passports. So if you go through one of their ports and they scan the passport and they realize that what they have on their system is different from what you present to it, then they will call us. They call our missions, our embassies, our consulates, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to find, look, Matt Peltier is at the border. He has a passport. He says his passport number is so and so. We cross-check. You understand? And this thing happen everywhere in the world. But this notion I'm hearing in the public domain that we are advancing the e-passport because of fraudulent activities and we are rushing. There's no rush. We've invested millions of dollars that the taxpayers are paying for. It is there. We have trained people. And if we are upgrading something, we want to ensure that everybody in the quickest possible time would have that passport to make your travel as a citizen of Dominica better and more pleasant and with less hassle. And also the integrity of the document that you have is recognized by every country in the world. So absolutely not. It's not because of no fraudulent activities. I know people are referencing, for example, an issue in the courts in Greece where it is said that somebody had a naturalization document of Dominica, some TN person. We have not been informed by the authorities in Greece on Cyprus, on this at all. And when I read the article, it is not saying anything close to what people are saying on their talk shows. You know, it is not placing Dominica or Dominica passport in any negative circumstance. Neither is it saying that the person who claims to have the naturalization document obtained it fraudulently. It's not saying it at all. As I'm saying, it is simply saying that somebody indicate that the applicant for naturalization had a passport bearing the name TN from the Country of Dominica. That's all. It's not saying anything about fraudulent activities. It is not saying that they have questions about Dominica's passport. It's not saying anything like this at all. So I want to say to Dominicans, the greatest sincerity, that's nothing to do our movement towards the e-passport. And there are many other countries in the Caribbean have moved to this. Antigua was a bit ahead of us. Grenada is rolling out theirs. St. Lucia is rolling out theirs. Every country is moving towards the e-passports, which is, you have a chip and you have certain biodata of each person that's unique, and is the system is able to read your facial features and distinguish one from the other. And I think we should all applaud the government for investing in this new e-passport so that we can enhance the integrity of our passport and make traveling for all of us as Dominican citizens more pleasurable and less hassle-free. But certainly, there's absolutely nothing to do with anything like fraudulent activities. And I do hope that those who are peddling this, having heard from me, will correct this. Because you see, the thing of fake news is just something else, and we're so quick to believe negative things. We're very slow to believe positive things, but so very quick to believe negative things, and so we must always give our country the benefit of the doubt, and seek clarification. And then when clarification is given, then we must say, okay, yes, I accept that clarification, and I think the position that we took prior to that was not the correct one and so forth. But absolutely, Matt, I can tell you and everybody else has nothing to do with any fraudulent activities. I think it's a progressive step taken by the government, and an important step. And that was done for many years now. Many years now. Roland? The Parliament. We're going to Parliament, and on Wednesday, one of the ministers will present a press statement on the other paper, the number of items on the other paper. So either tomorrow or Wednesday, the ministers will present the items on the paper and to explain to the country what are the matters will be taken to Parliament. But they're very, when I look at the other paper, all of the bills that will be taken really are relief efforts, opportunities for Dominicans, all of them coming out of the budget of last year, so that we put in those policy decisions into law. So that, for example, we had reduced the transfer fees on properties, lands and properties and so on. And we had done it for 1 year in the first instance. And because of the positive impact it had on the economy and people's pockets, there was a huge demand in our consultation or pre-budget consultation to have it extended by 1 year. So we extended by a second year. And then the cabinet felt, well, look, if this thing is having such a positive impact on the economy, where so many properties that were sitting there, people hadn't probated their wills, people could not afford to pay the transfer fees, and now people are able to probate their wills and to share the property, and people can use those properties as collateral in the banks or build new structures upon them, or to even sell them to make additional monies for themselves. Why not make it permanent? And so we're making it permanent. There's another bill with regards to the road maintenance levy that we had introduced some years ago, to deal with road maintenance. Road maintenance is a huge cost in Dominica, as we all know. And the little money that we're paying for our vehicle registration is nowhere close to fixing potholes, far more to build roads. And what we indicated to the country when we announced this measure in the budget was that the road maintenance levy would target road reconstruction maintenance. And so the Charles Avenue, the entire Charles Avenue from Vanlu's house all the way to the hospital was built with the road maintenance levy funds. And we all knew the road back then, how rock it was with all of the cobblestones and all these things, and so forth. And we spent quite a few millions there to upgrade this road and enlarging it, proper drainage, culverting, and very solid surface. and so forth. And I believe that we may have, when we had, the money was not used for that from the road maintenance levy, but we also built the new vending stalls there to improve the conditions that people were working under. But in an effort to provide relief to bus drivers and to road users as a result of COVID-19 and the war in Russia and Ukraine, the government decided to remove this so that you could keep the money, and the government will find monies otherwise to maintain the roads and so on. So all of this were part of a number of measures to ease the burden on all citizens of Dominica. But on Tuesday, a minister will give a press briefing so I can give more details on what going to parliamentary and so on. Roland, please.
Yeah, just to add in terms of food security, the intention is to have a rapid expansion program, as I mentioned earlier in my presentation. But importantly, I must mention the tissue culture lab. That's one of the strategies that we're using to ensure that we have clean and readily supply of planting materials. For example, the lab can provide up to 500,000 plants in any one cycle to farmers in Dominica. So we're working on that. Food security is a regional issue, not just Dominica, but we are putting plans in place to address this. And one of our strategies is to ensure that we have readily available planting materials so farmers can plant and invest in farming. In terms of the high level use of fertilizer, that's an issue that has been, but I must say maybe it's overuse, not really high level use, the overuse of fertilizer. As a young extensionist in my younger days, I remember myself going around with a projector and a screen doing presentation on fertilizer use and management. And that is something extension continues to do. I think it's something for education to continue, to advise farmers as to the proper use of fertilizer, not just in the quantity, but the type. Not any fertilizer used for a particular crop. Sometimes the soil itself needs some level of amelioration for white lime to ensure that the pH conditions are right for the plant to uptake the nutrients. So I'm saying all this to say it's a total package that we need to present, but we must focus on education, and which extension will continue to do, and in the mix also promote organic farming, which we have been doing. Payment to farmers who were affected by tropical storm in November, or by the system. The report is already finalized and will forward soon to the relevant office for approval, but we've done all the assessment on site, both livestock and crops, which is finalized now, and will forward to the relevant office for approval. The coffee plant in Portsmouth, very good question. We have some recent developments. As background, as you know, Venidom and a Dominican company was co-owner of the plant funded by the Alba Bank. Recently, we've had the shares of Venidom transferred to the Dominica side. So the Dominica side company has full control of the assets. In addition to that, the loan of 10 million was written off for the coffee plant. And Venezuela, in addition, is going to provide a grant of $1.4 million to ensure that we do the necessary repairs and renovation to the facility. As we speak, the equipment for the plant is already packaged and ready to be shipped to Dominica, which we expect to be arrived soon. And they're also going to provide some technical support for the training of young persons and technical staff for the plant, so we could have a fully functional coffee plant. You know, it has been done for a while, but we faced a lot of challenges with operations and other issues that was beyond our control. But looking ahead, we're very confident by the end of this year, we will see a fully functional coffee plant in 1 mile Portsmouth.
Thank you to the Honourable Minister. Good news all around for the agriculture sector. This one, we'll take one more question from DBS Radio and look to wind down. Sure.
Good morning, Mr. Prime Minister. Jamasha Mello, DBS Radio. There were talks last year of the rehabilitation of the Old Mill Cultural Center, and we were briefed that the rehabilitation was nearly complete. Can you give us an update on that? And while we speak of cultural facilities, can you also give an update on the rehabilitation of the Old Mill Cultural Center as well?
Thank you. Good morning again, Mr. Prime Minister. I need to ask and go back to a question that you sort of answered as it relates to electoral reform. You used the word modernization in your last news conference. Can you seem to want to explain a little more about that? And secondly, I think it was last year sometime, you spoke about moving to your own house because the burden on the taxpayers is huge. Can you seem to want to clarify? And Mr. Vincent, I can ask you a question following that? Mr. Vince? Can you ask about, can you tell us, give us an update on mining in the valley? Geothermal, yeah.
With regards to the Iraq culture, and of course, the Ministry of Culture is listening, and they'll give you a more comprehensive update on that. But I think part of the problem at the Iraq had to do with some supplies of material and equipment and so forth. So we need to find out where we are on that. But part of the challenge with these things, I don't like to fix old buildings, That's it. Sometimes let's say you build a new building and modernize this thing. Sometimes we're trying to put something new on something old, and the Iraq was built for a particular point in time, And I think sometimes you have more complication when you try to fix an old thing than to build a new something, And this is why next 2 weeks I'll unveil to you, some plans for some things more modern and more of the times. And likewise, the Iraq also called, Old Mill. Old Mill has a particular history. And so I believe that the Ministry of Culture needs to come up with a more comprehensive approach to the restoration of the Old Mill. Buying piece of 5-inch plywood and putting it on a stage and all these things. And let us study the clear history of the Old Mill and try to bring it back. Obviously, making it more comfortable for patrons there and to build a center there where people can display their art. Dominican artists so we can have a place in Dominica. If I want a piece of art, I know where to go. And this is the kind of thing that I would like to do, because when you go now to the Old Mill, at my height, I have to be bending down to watch a piece of art. I want to stand, upright and study the art and size it up and to see if I want to buy it. But you have to go down there and look at things, then come up, So we have to look at this and to build a more comprehensive approach to this, maintaining the history but modernizing things. And I think that's the approach we have to take. That's the balance we take in Dominica. But people want to keep the things as they were when Columbus was there, or something like that. So we can maintain the history, similar to the library. We have a challenge where we can't go forward with building a library because people want us to restore the Carnegie building. But there are ways of using the historical value of this thing and building something modern, something new, marrying the two. So we're not losing the history. We maintain the history, but we have to modernize things because the whole issue of library and access to information has been dramatically altered. People read books. You go online and you go and online publications and you do research and you have access to libraries across the world and research documents, etc., etc. So it's something that we have to have a conversation in the country. As part of the whole national reset, whole national rethinking, of things. If we are to get our country in a quicker time where we all would like it to be with all of the necessary amenities, I find we spend too much time, talking about something and not getting anything done. Because everybody needs to have a view, which is fine, but our views must be to enhance, not to hold back, to develop, not to break down. and this kind of thing. The modernization of the electoral process, I think that's a better terminology to use. The reality is the vast majority of Dominicans believe that the system that we have is okay and has worked over all our elections there. But with the passing of time, with the access to technology, that we need to come up with the time with times. And so it is not that we are taking the entire system and getting rid of it. We're basically seeking to modernize what we have. So the issue of a national ID card, with your biometric data on the card that you can present when you go to vote, that kind of thing. Computerizing the whole system, for example. So it's really a modernization process rather than electoral reform, because you're not fixing a broken system. The system is not broken. You're really seeking to modernize it. I mean, the reality is, Matt, you and I will agree that we've always had free and fair elections in Dominica. And the people of Dominica have been able to express their will at every elections in Dominica. Every elections. And this has been the case. But there has been talk about the list being too large, and we have to verify who is on the list to see where they are and so forth. The issue of the national ID cards for voting purposes, the use of technology in the electoral process. So it really is to modernize it. I mean, this is coming from having the box TV that we used to have to a flat screen. You have modernized television, but you have not reformed television. I mean, you could still see, but it's improved. The quality is improved, but it's still a television. So this is what it is, and so we're committed to this. As you know, we made the funds available to the Electoral Commission. It's a matter for us now to pass the legislation and end the chatter about electoral modernization, and now we can boast that we have one of the most advanced system insofar as the use of technology and the modernization of our process. In respect to my own home in Mount Daniel, it will be completed this year. So by the grace of God, I'll move in this year, and that's what it will be. So, but rest assured, it is. I stopped for a few months, So, but I'll resume February, and move very quickly to have it completed. You passed it recently, Matt? No, you passed it. Yeah. It's a good question. There were about $278,000 or so that we owed some 33 farmers, P.S. Henderson. I think those funds are available to be paid. So those persons, I think we need to publicize the names so that people know who they are. So those monies are available to be paid. The challenge you have sometimes is the issue of land ownership. Who owns the farm? If one person, this is why it's important that people enter into lease agreements when they're working on private lands, because sometimes the landowner wants the money, because the landowner is saying, well, the breadfruit tree was there already, the coconut trees were there already, the citrus were there already, the cocoa trees were there already, and Mr. only have a few cucumbers there, Mr. nothing there. So you have those disputes. So you, as a government, you have to make sure that he who is getting the check is the rightful person. Otherwise, somebody can take the government to court for paying somebody. So it's important that people get into lease agreements. One pager, no big fancy document. One pager. I'm leasing from you 5 acres of land at $5 a year, annually, whatever it is, and so that you have that. What are the crops you plant in there, so that it is a smoother undertaking and so forth. Before I leave this podium, and I think Vince will answer a question, right? And so Vince will close. But Henderson will close. I would like also to to extend to the family of the Freetime Calypso King Solo, who's been laid to rest today. So I want to express our condolences to his family. And, I believe it's an important time that Calypso writers and Calypsonians will reflect on the writing of Calypsos today and whether we have not lost our way insofar as the content of the lyrics and the focus of our lyrics in Dominica. And let it be truly the art form it's supposed to be, where masking was the order of the day, rather than what it appears to be a spewing of hate and not a promotion of the cultural art form, Calypso. And so I want to caution the Calypso Association, because 10, 12 years ago, when you were hosting the final of Calypso, there is no man Jack in Dominica who could think of having an event at the same day, because you'll have 15, 20,000 people in the stadium. But today, with the Calypso finals, you're having many activities to the point where the Calypso Association is saying that government should stop all activities on that day. And it is a reflection on the fact that the consumers of the art form are not impressed. And so if you really want to get to days of solo, NC could write a song for you in half an hour and be on stage the next half hour and win. And the lyrical content. Rabbit was known to be a strong freedom man, but he put blows on missiles, but in a respectful art form way. The gentleman who died who sang Viva Mama Eugenia, or what's his name? Spider. Patrick John wrote the song Dear John for him, which spoke to the whole spirit of the art form. But unfortunately, before Ash Wednesday comes, when we as Catholics go and get our ash, the songs at Calypso are all dead in Tewe Vaval in the Carnago territory and in Jubla. None of them live beyond that time. Maximum Cemetery is still there because it was written in those days. Tokyo, Rabbit, Tornado, Hurricane. This, Hurricane still there. And of course my friend from Layo, Tornado, Thunder. And even people like Sour. He speaks for a particular purpose, but you 5 years later you can dance on Sour. But you cannot be a 5-time or 4-time Calypso king, and your song is dead with Vaval. That's not what it is. It has to survive until the next season, and beyond that. How many of us buy these recordings anymore and play it? And no, we don't do that anymore because of what value? And so it's just interesting. You have this guy who just came on board, and he has this song very nicely done, Dictatorship Trilogy. A bouillon guy, first time writing a Calypso, and he wrote it himself. You listen to this thing, and there's some improvement that can be done, but for his first time, exemplary. You see what I'm saying? So I listen to this song and so on, and tell you, be careful that you don't go into a little fountain.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Matt, I see you wanted us to continue what we started a few weeks ago. So you had to pull me out. Prime Minister, Minister Roy, Cabinet colleagues, media, CAPSEC, PSs, all other distinguished guests, Dominicans listening at home and outside of Dominica. Pleasant good morning. By way of update, Matt, I really would rather, spend some time dedicated to this discussion because there's so much to talk about. And I think I might be doing a little injustice to the type of investment and the progress that's taking place in the Roosevelt Valley with geothermal development if I were to just rush this. But just by way of updates, it's exciting, and we invite all of you to visit. I think that is the thing too. Sometimes we stay on our radio and at home, and we send our comments that we don't go out to see what's happening. And I really urge you to visit the Roosevelt Valley, and Loda in particular, because for over the last several months, we have invested over $20 million in the Roosevelt Valley. We've improved the roads to Loda. That was at an investment of about $2.5 million, just to ensure that the equipment doing the drilling would have easy access to that, to Loda. In October of this year, we brought the rig into Dominica, and the rig, that is to say the drilling rig, from Iceland Drilling, for those of you who don't know, it's about over, about 100 feet. It's huge. It's a massive, massive structure with their own generation capacity of about 4 megawatts. That's almost 30% of what all of us consume in Dominica. So that's a huge undertaking. So we have, in the Roosevelt Valley, drilling taking place. We've completed the drilling of one well. That is one production well. That is where the steam comes up, and that is the steam that will be used to power a turbine to provide electricity. The first well, excellent results so far. We have the temperature, the pressure, the permeability, all the things that we're looking for. Excellent. It seems to be as good as the other well, one of the wells that we have already in Loda. So that hopefully will give us another 10 megawatts of power. Just to give you an idea, we consume 15 megawatts in Dominica. Our peak demand is 15. We already have a 10 megawatt well and another 2, and we just, in December of last year, drilled another well with possibly the potential of giving us another 10 megawatts. So we have in the Roosevelt Valley now the ability to generate more power than we need in Dominica. That is how good this is. We are also drilling a reinjection well. That is the well that is used to put all the stuff that comes out back into the system, so we do not send anything out of the environment. So we are preparing the site for that. It is, that entire contract is being done by ACE Engineering to the tune of about $3 million US. We have some recent cost overrun, and because of the nature and type of the soil in that area, but the work should be completed in the second well pad by the end of February, and by March we will be drilling the new reinjection well. That investment, the drilling part, is about $16 million US, 43 million EC dollars. That is being funded with $10 million US by way of grant from the United Kingdom, $2 million from SIDSDOC, which is an organization that I help fund, and we're also getting the additional funds from the World Bank through the IDA funds. So that is the entire $16 million package. The next stage is to actually construct the plant. We're looking at a power plant which will cost about 60 to 70 million US dollars. That's about 160 to 190 million EC dollars. The good thing about that investment is once you've done this, that's it. You have power. There's no need for diesel or anything. So that is an investment that can go on for another 50 years without having to make any additional investment except for routine maintenance to ensure that everything is in order. In addition to that, we are embarking on the construction of new transmission lines, which will be done from the Roosevelt Valley, Loda in particular, to carry all the geothermal power and the hydropower in the Roosevelt Valley to Focole. That is about a 10-kilometer run. It is a significant investment, but funds have already been secured from the World Bank to cover that investment. We are currently carrying out our environment and social impact assessment study, and the designs have been completed. We're hoping to go to market in the next 3 months to tender for a developer or contractor for the construction of those lines. The other aspect of our transmission system is from Focole to Sugarloaf, but that is still being discussed. Since we have recently completed surface studies in the north to prove the presence of geothermal potential there. And therefore, the debate as to whether you construct a plant in the north, which will also help in resilience, it is a discussion that's ongoing. Should we invest in a line to get all the way down north, which is, by the way, going to be about 70 to 80 million US dollars if we are to do it to build the resilience that we're seeking to achieve as part of our climate resilience strategy. So that is essentially where we are. We are hoping that by April, we would have concluded all the drilling, and we would then move quickly into the construction of a power plant. Negotiations with a developer on the construction of the power plant will begin by the 3rd of February. In a few days, there will be an island. We will start discussions, and we're hoping that we can at least advance in that to be ready by the time all drilling is completed, and of course the design and tender for the transmission lines are done. Oh, you moved from Loda to Granbury Primary School. Well, that is, yeah, it's going on. Work is ongoing. We have secured the final contracts for the completion of that facility, and we are hoping that we can resolve all outstanding matters with the first contractor. So most of the works have been done by a first contractor to the tune of $3.2 million. We've recently engaged a contractor for the completion of the flooring, the fencing, some other works that need to be done to ensure that the facility is safe and ready for our students, hopefully by the beginning of the next school year. That's it? Just call me, man. Call me.
Amanda, yes.